what we are going to do today. So I hope we have an interactive dialogue on cultural loss and identity crisis. We will be discussing on the effects of globalization, cultural loss through colonization, the importance of understanding the worth of heritage and ancestry as part of your identity, dignity and self-worth as a part of one's identity, education as a contributing factor in stemming cultural loss. And at the end, we will have a question and answer session. So, I really love this quote from the book Jinnah of Pakistan. So this is a keynote. I just read it out. Islam gave the Muslims of India a sense of identity. So number one, identity. You became Pakistanis. Dynasties like the Mughals gave them territory. So when Babur, the Mughal, came to India and set up the Mughal Empire, it was a Muslim dynasty ruling a Hindu population. Poets like Allama Iqbal gave them a sense of destiny, that you are destined to have a homeland like Pakistan. Jinnah's towering stature derives from the fact that by leading the Pakistan movement and creating the state of Pakistan, he gave them all three. So I put some pictures up there. You can see the Qaid-e-Azam. This was at a Muslim League session in Bombay before partition. You can see the map of Pakistan. You can see the Pakistani symbol. This is on every government book, paper. This symbol is there. And then you have the Constitution of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, your flag, your passport. First of all, PIA was made, Pakistan International Airways. So we became one with the rest of the world who had their own airlines. And then you have your arts and crafts, a very important part of your culture. And then there's a picture there of a Balochi wearing this headgear. Now we have 4 provinces in Pakistan, and next to it is a Sindhi topi. But if you go back to the picture of Qaid-e-Azam, what is he wearing? Tell me. On his head. What is he wearing? A cap. What is that cap called now? G? Jinnah hair. Alright. Now most of us have forgotten about that. But if you see pictures of the earlier leaders of the Pakistan movement and the Muslim League, all of them wear the Jinnah cap. And if you go to the Ottoman Empire, you have this red cap with this thing hanging down at the side. That was the how the Turks or the Ottomans had their headgear. So all across the Muslim world and the Ummah, you have every country where they have their own headgear. Now, I got this question from you. There are different perspectives on how culture can be defined. How would you define culture? So my definition is culture defined means the values, beliefs, attitudes, behaviors which characterize a particular group of people in any society across the world. Now let's go back to the word values. Where do values come from? Where do you think your values come from? To be honest, to pay your taxes. You can just put up your hand and say something. values come from? Okay. Any other answer? Next is beliefs. What are beliefs? Alright, your religion. Alright, so many of your values will come from your religion. Alright, from childhood onwards, everybody who follows Islam will learn the values of Islam. Alright, it's a communal religion. You have to look after the poor, there's charity, everything. These are values. Attitudes to other people. Now, this young man said, human being. So our attitudes as Muslims, as Pakistanis, is because we are human beings. And that is how we have to treat the rest of the world also. Now, I go back to 2013. I was in Chicago. You heard about Chicago? It's a huge city in the United States, in the northern part. Alright, so it was Eid. And I'm an eyewitness to what I'm going to read out to you. Is everybody listening now attentively? Because you can't read it from there. Okay. This year, Eid al-Fitr prayers at the largest mosque in Chicago, USA, had a strength of nearly 1,000 people who turned up in their traditional clothes to celebrate the end of Ramzan. All of us do it here too, don't we? Migrant Pakistanis, those who have chosen to live in America, have migrated there and made it their home, made up the bulk of the congregation. And while older generations sported shalwar kameez and even sherwanis or ashkans and spoke in their native tongues, it could be Punjabi, Sindhi, Urdu, whatever, the next generation brought up in the USA had distinct American accents. Obviously, we go to school in America and they are taught the way to speak there. If one closed one eye, so please close your eyes. Everybody close your eyes. And heard the talk around, then you hear what people are talking around. There was nothing to distinguish them from born and bred American citizens. Right? You can open your eyes now. Yet, the fashionable traditional dresses of the younger and older girls with dupattas or head coverings made you feel as if you were in one of the biggest cities or towns of Pakistan. So even there in Chicago, in this mosque, you could feel that maybe you were in Pakistan. Evidently, cultural norms of greetings, Assalamu alaikum, mannerisms, obviously they said their prayers in a certain way, family bonds. So from the elders to the youngest children had not changed or been affected by a dominant culture. So the dominant culture is the American culture in which they are living. That was alien to this community in their adopted land. Has everyone understood that? Hopefully yes. Okay. Now, there's a picture on the board. I want you to observe it for 2 minutes. And there was a question from here. Do you agree that our identities are defined by our culture and the society in which we are raised? Everyone can see the picture? Alright. Now please stand up and talk loudly and tell me. This grade 5 child was asked, who am I? But to show it in a artistic way, to make a picture of himself and what his interests were. So what do you see? What are his interests?
Grade 9, we have specially called this level down because we find it the most interactive. You are interacting with us on a daily basis, but the system doesn't know how well you understand things. So please interact and learn. It is important and be a little loud when you are responding because after you have some आवाज नहीं आती.
Yes, what do you see? Anybody?
Yes.
Yes. So there's a football, there's a table tennis racket, there's probably another ball. Anything else? What defines his identity here? He's made that there. What defines his identity? Can you see a mosque? He's made a mosque there. Can you see the Khana Kaaba? Yes, that defines him. So we know now that he's a Muslim. Then on the right side, there's a picture of his friend. Can you see that little face there? And it's white. Alright? So that's probably his American friend. Now at the bottom you see a television set. So he's fond of watching television. Then you see one flag. What is it? Right. What is next to that? An American flag. Alright. Now in the middle of the picture, obviously he lies in ice cream cone. He has whatever this game is that you play on television. Anyway, why do you think he has colored his face brown? Brown. His red is white. Yes? To show he's Pakistani? He's an Asian. Alright. And also I think a bit of a color complex.
May I share some?
Yes, please.
I think that our identities are not defined by where we live. It's more related to our ancestry, our cultures, and our traditions and customs. Because we can see that this boy, he's more likely to be an Pakistani immigrant, because we can see two different types of flags.
Yes.
So maybe he's moved from Pakistan to America, but still he is identified as a Pakistani or a Muslim. We can see the Khana Kaaba and all that, so it actually refers to his culture and his tradition.
Right. Now, even if he's growing up, he was born in America, he grew up there, he goes to school in America. He has not lost touch with his own culture and religion, right? So why is it that in Pakistan, we tend to put our culture aside and take on things from other countries around the world? Am I right? Yes. So it is correct that our identities are defined by our culture and the society in which we are raised. So the American society things are there also, but his own identity is very strong. Ancestry and heritage, I couldn't put on too much on this slide, but this is a beautiful, sorry, next slide. So, Fatehpur Sikri, which Mughal Emperor Akbar built, the new capital near Agra, has a huge doorway like this. And when you're walking up the steps, you feel like this little. It's like a miniature. It's so huge. And on that, also there is calligraphy. But this one is probably from Iran. And you can see there's a special type of calligraphy script. It's called the Kufic script. So even buildings, while I was coming to Barrier Town, there are 2-3 buildings which are using the Kufic script on the outside, on the exterior. So you need to connect with all of these things as part of your ancestry, as part of your heritage. Now when we come to dignity, there's a word in English called demeanor. D-E-M-A-N-O-U-R, demeanor. The way you behave, the way your attitude is. Now, if you have self-respect for yourself as a person, you will never lie, you will never cheat, you will never harm anybody else or another human being. Your self-worth comes from being an individual, being a Muslim, being a Pakistani. That's your worth. And to be able to get a good education in your own country. So you are getting that. And Self-esteem. Now the way you look at yourself in a dignified manner. I don't want to bring up this topic, but because we live in Pakistan and we see this, I will call it tamasha, every day on television. Every day the politicians are making speeches. Now, just put up your hands if you feel that they are undignified in the way they speak. Put up your hands if you feel they are undignified. Alright, very good. They are undignified. For one, the screaming and the shouting is not part of a dignified person. You will speak softly, you can get your point across without screaming and shouting. Now, calling another person names. Now, the Quran and the Hadith specifically forbids you to point out any failing, either physical or mental, in another human being and to make fun of it. That's undignified, right? I mean, you can do it as part of, chit-chat, but no, you're not allowed to do it. So many small points like this contribute to your dignity as a person, as a human being. And Islam tells you everything, how to behave as a human being. It tells you in every way. I mean, the Quran is a book of instructions, how to live your life, from morning till evening, right? Poise. Now, many people get angry very quickly, start screaming. There are many ways in which you lose your own poise. So to get that poise, you need to have your own self-respect, your self-worth and self-esteem in place, right? So you are part of a country called Pakistan. You are part of a huge ummah as a Muslim. 1 billion Muslims in the world, and there are so many countries, Muslim countries. Self-esteem. You are gaining it all the time from your studies, from your schooling, from your home. So you will get that poise to be able to speak in a dignified manner. Pride. Now, pride not as a person to be haughty or arrogant, but to take pride in who you are and what is around you. So when we say that the Indus Valley civilization was a very advanced civilization which was in this part of the country 5,000 years ago. So you're part of that. People from this soil are you and us. And that advanced civilization which the West was totally dumbstruck at. Oh, really? Well, this is in this part of the world. They've known about Chinese and Egyptian, but not the Indus Valley. So you come down 5,000 years in history to be who you are. Respectability. Respect for yourself and for others. So that is the extreme crux of the matter. That you have to respect everything. Now, when you hear about cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then people come out on the streets, etc. So they are trying to say that you do not respect our Prophet, isn't it? But the way in which they are doing it is undignified, right? It can be done through the newspaper, it can be done in a peaceful way, it can be just to sit down in front of the governor's house in Pakistan, in Lahore, or other places in Pakistan. It can be done like that. But we never should lose our dignity. Yes, if they are making fun of our Prophet, it looks bad on them, not us. So respect is the foundation of everything. If you respect animals, you respect yourself, you respect your parents, your elders, your teachers, that's the behavior. Now let's come to globalization. A big word which is constantly being used, but it is happening. It is happening. The world has become a global village through three things. Now I want you to tell me what three things have made us a global village. Okay. Internet. Okay, good. Anything else? Transportation, air transport. Where it used to take days and months to go on a camel or a donkey or a horse, now it's 2 hours, 1.5 hours, and you can cross the whole world in a few hours. Number 3. Yes. 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 But why has it become a global village? In the sense that people are traveling all the time. In less time than they would have done, maybe 1,000 years ago or 500 years ago. So it is a village now. The media tells you what's happening in Peru, South America, and next morning you can read it in the paper. Am I right? That's how it's become a global village. Now, globalization brought one word into the education sector, which is multiculturalism. So now, across the world, it continues like that. That yes, schools must be multicultural because they have people from diverse backgrounds in their schools. So, if in England all children are Christian, but then you will also have Muslim students there. You will also have Buddhist students there. So that is multiculturalism, and this is a word which was overused in education now. But what I feel happened in Pakistan was with multiculturalism and diversity, we tended to leave our own culture behind to be able to be part of multiculturalism. And I will explain it to you later. So this is from a study by Van Shu Eva Lam of Northwestern University, Chicago. So it's a very well-known university and it has a high academic record, Northwestern University in Chicago. So from this study, she says that globalization has been classified in the context of major changes that the world today faces. And we're all part of that change. Maybe not you, but I am. So if I was born in the 50s, I've seen a lot of change, right up to 2022. So she puts it like that. Globalization has become an umbrella term, like an umbrella, for what is taking place around the world in association with global integration of economies. IMF, World Bank, capitalism, these are all words that are used in economics. And this is what is bringing the world as part of globalization. Rapid media, I just talked about that. And information flow facilitated by new communication technologies. So what you have in your hand today through technology, we didn't have. We had to place a call on the phone long time ago and wait. It was called a trunk call. And then the person would say that, so-and-so is on the phone now and you can talk to him. And now WhatsApp.
There was a time limit as well.
Yes, time limit also. Now you just pick up, click the phone on WhatsApp and you're talking to anybody across the world and the connection is so clear. So information flow facilitated by new communication technologies, international migration of labor. Now I don't know if you are aware of it, but a lot of labor went in the 50s from Mirpur, Azad Kashmir, Gujarat, Gujranwala to England. And a lot came from the West Indies to England. I'm just talking of this because we are familiar with it. But across the world, labor has gone. A lot of our labor is now in Saudi Arabia and the Middle East. And they sent back Pakistan's economy. So all of these 5 things have, and the resultant cultural transformations, challenging traditional social structures. That's what's happening. Now, if you have Eid, would you like to have sevaiyan or a cake? Cake. Alright, so that's globalization. If you have sevaiyan, that's your tradition or custom to have that at that time. And a lot of my social studies classes, I will tell the teachers that when Eid comes near, one class should be a cooking class and bring all the ingredients to class, make it in front of them and share it with a plastic spoon. Everybody has a spoon and have part of it. That is how you take care of your culture. Continue to take care of it. Is everyone clear on this? Now, thus culture, community, there's a lot of community, the word community in education now. So you have to do community duty, you have to look after the community. But if you go back into our own tradition and customs and culture in Pakistan and the village culture, it was already a community culture. Every neighbor knew everybody else. Every person in the village participated in a funeral or a marriage or helped out a neighbor if they needed money, etc. So all this community, they looked after the sanitization and the hygiene of the village. Everything was happening. Identity, thus culture, community, identity and processes of learning are being challenged when young people interact with others in the context of media and migration of population. So you now know that the labor migration and other migrations to other countries and the media is what is transforming you into a global culture. In some ways, a lot of ways, and maybe not at all. So these social cultural changes taking place in the context of globalization are affecting how young people, you are the young people, how you're growing up, how you're learning, how you're playing, how you're working and interacting with the world around you. Right? It is you. So are you growing up in an Islamic atmosphere at home? When you come to school, are there enough cultural and Islamic ways that are taught to you in school? When you become a parent, will you continue with these things with your next generation? And so forth. So already there are concrete signs of adopting transcultural practices across the world. Music is one. But now with our pop music, with Ali Sethi and all the rest of it, I think in our time, we used to listen to English songs. Also on the radio. We didn't have any other access. Or there was this player, the record gramophone, and we used to hear songs like that. But now, the generation I see that you are now connecting more with pop culture, but through your own people and your own language, as you can see. Music, marketing, all the ads that you see, wherever marketing is done, it is done, perhaps you want an ad which looks like it's from abroad. Or now you're using your own people, etc., in the ads that are through Pakistan. Food. Now the pizza culture and the burger culture and the McDonald's are there, yes. They are across the world. But that is not part of you. You can always go and have them. But don't make it a continuous thing in your life. You would like to have your own food, your own cuisine, which your mother cooks. Am I right?
Yes.
The chapati.
Yes.
We can't do without chapati, biryanis, etc. and the means that we love our food. And these will not go out of fashion ever because they are all around you. Ways of dressing. Now, ways of dressing for men when Mr. Bhutto came into power, and my own husband did this also. He brought in the shalwar kameez, the Awami suit it was called. And for a year and a half, my husband went in an Awami suit to his office and back. He would wear it all the time. He didn't wear a suit, he didn't wear a shirt or a trouser to go to work. So maybe that was a good thing that Mr. Bhutto did, and it did have its impact on people around. But the Awami culture that he talked about was that you need to connect with the ordinary people. You don't look like a sahab in your suit. You can be the same. Everybody is the same, and Islam tells you that. There's no ups and downs in the strata of society. So dressing across countries and cultures. However, the most important part that we always miss out, language plays a pivotal role in keeping students grounded in their own cultural morals. Now, I will take the example of colonization here and talk about that. There was a question that what has impacted society, identity and culture, colonization or globalization? What do you think? You put up your hands if you feel globalization has had more of an effect. Hands up. All right, good. The girls are. What about the boys? What about colonization? If you feel colonization has had more effect. Very good. Okay. All right. Now, across the world, Britain, France, Portugal, and Spain, all of these countries made their colonies in Africa, in Asia, North America, and also South America. Now, tell me one thing that colonization brought to these countries. One thing, most important. Any idea?
Culture. Culture.
But what part of culture?
Language.
Absolutely. Language. It was language. So if you have Morocco, or if you have Libya, or if you have other North African countries colonized by the French, they speak French now. If it was the Indian subcontinent, countries in Africa, who were colonized, they speak English now. So that was the worst thing that you could do to your culture, is to take about your language and impose their language on you. Now, in our context, it is English. And a lot of times, over the years, I've had these debates and discussions. No, English is important. English is important. Everybody must know English. Yes, English is important. It is spoken across the world now. But you take it up as a language to be learned, a functional language, to be used in emails, to get your point across, in letters, and so forth. But don't leave behind your own language, which we have done over the years, because our educational policies have been doing a seesaw all the time. Now it's Urdu, now it's English. Now it's Urdu, now it's English. All right. Now put up your hands if you feel that you would rather speak English or speak your own language, whether it's Urdu, Punjabi, Pashto, Sindhi, Baluchi. Who would like to speak English only? Any hands? Okay, you would like to, that's fine, you're honest about it. But what about your own language? Now you have to answer that. What about your own language? What happens to that? Do you read Iqbal in Urdu? Do you know what Ghalib said in his poetry? No. So that is where the cultural loss is taking place. A real cultural loss is taking place. Because unless you read Iqbal's poetry, you cannot find out your destiny of who am I? Who am I? Alright? And if you don't read Ghalib or the other poets or the prose written in Urdu, which is all reflecting your culture, whether it's Ramzan or keeping fast or the way we say our prayers or the mosque, all of those are in that literature that we are missing out on. So you have taken on an alien culture through English. I'm saying it very blatantly and very honestly. We have. So you know more about, at least I did, because I read Barchester Tars, which was all about the monks and the priests and the Catholic Church. It's a novel by Anthony Trollope that I did in school. If I did Shakespeare, which I did, because I was very fond of English literature, it was all about what Shakespeare had seen in his own country. And when you talk about daffodils, if you know about Wordsworth, he's a English poet, a host of golden daffodils. Does anyone know what daffodils are? What they look like? Yes or no? Yes. What do they look like? G?
Daffodils are like golden flowers.
Okay. They look very golden if they are in a field, right? What is similar to that in your country? A golden field. Wheat? What about sarson? Have you seen fields of sarson? Fields yellow all along and a much brighter color than daffodils. But the flower daffodil looks like nargis that we have here. It's a bigger version of it, but has no perfume or smell in it. So that is how you never connect with your own culture if you're going through a different language in your schooling. So another question, is educating the younger generation on cultural identities an act of dire need in this era of globalization? Now this is one research I did, and the principal of a convent school, this is her answer that I'm going to read out to you. That is this the most important thing that we need to do right now is to educate our younger generations on cultural identities. So she says the first need is the economic challenges facing education in the present century. This means the kind of jobs that will be available to you through your education. And there are many, many diverse jobs now that are in, and not just becoming an engineer or a doctor. And she says in the educational process in her school, the second more pressing need is cultural, and how to educate children to continue with the cultural identity of their communities. Right? That is the more challenging part that education has to face today. When the impact of globalization is becoming more and more inspirational for young minds. So young minds can take on anything and be inspired by what the West is doing, etc., etc. But if you go back in the 12th, 13th century, most of the innovations and the inventions were done by Muslims, whether they were Arabs or from Arabs in Spain or North Africa or the Middle East. They were the ones who brought out, and Ibn Battuta, who came to India actually researched and gave you your geographical the lines that go horizontally and laterally. Yes, those. He's the one. And there's one place in Pakistan where he did that. So it's very interesting that we've forgotten all about these things. The first man to fly was Ibn Farnas in Spain 1,000 years ago, much earlier than the Wright brothers. So he made his wings and he got to the top of a house and then he flew off. So are you inspired by the West, or are you going to now look very closely at your own culture, hopefully, and see it around you, in terms of art, paintings, calligraphy, dresses. There's a whole museum in Allama Iqbal Park that you need to go and see about your history of Pakistan, the Minar-e-Pakistan and the way it's being made. It has a whole history behind it. The Badshahi Mosque, the largest in Pakistan from the Mughal era. All of these things then come down to who you are, a Muslim and a Pakistani, right? So in conclusion, my concluding thoughts would be the lesson for all Pakistanis in the education sector, US students, teachers, administrators, those who run schools, is that identity and culture are the mainstays of any people and must be nurtured at all costs. Because if you lose it, then you're nobody. You're a nobody, really. So there's a speech that Qaid Azam did. In that speech he said that now that your country is made, I would like to give you an example of America, the US. In America, it only has a history of 200 years. But people with strong cultural backgrounds came from Europe, whether they were French, Spanish, Portuguese, Italians, etc. They all came to America to look to the new world, to find jobs in a better life. But if you look at them today, they are nationalistic, they are patriotic, and when you ask them who you are, they say, I'm American. So he said, you've got your country now, you've got your territory, you've got your state, and that is your first identity. And now that you should be proud to say, I am Pakistan. So I'd like to end on that, and we have question answers. So I've done 3 of these.
Yes, ma'am. To what extent do you think that children who grow up in third world countries are more likely to experience a cultural identity crisis?
All right, it's number 6. Now, I wouldn't call it a third world country. We no longer call that. It's demeaning. We call these countries third world. We are underdeveloped countries, according to the West. So let's call ourselves underdeveloped countries. Now, where underdeveloped countries, there's a lot of fast pace of development in some areas, and not much in the village culture that is around you in Pakistan. So you will find that in underdeveloped countries, you are more likely to be impressed and to be inspired by things like high-speed trains or all the innovations that have come up, and we feel they have come through the West. So yes, you will be impressed by them because you are trying to come up to the level of a developed country. So a developed country has good systems, good taxation systems. It has systems for everything, and they follow the law. follow the law. But these are the good things we are not looking at in underdeveloped countries. We don't follow the law. We don't follow the system. If there is a system for an ID card, we should follow it. If there is a system for a passport, we should follow it. All of these systems have to be strictly followed. So you are more likely to be impressed, oh, McDonald's, and what's the other one? KFC, or to wear jeans, or to be impressed by their fashions. I mean, it's more a global thing. Fashion is more global now. But you know what? They are picking up now. The top fashion designers in the West are taking up our truck art and putting them on their shoes and on clothes. And even the Peshawari chappal that they saw Imran Khan wearing, even that has come into many women in the West now wear a Peshawari chappal instead of a boot. So they are taking our cultural things now, but we are leaving them behind. Does that answer your question? Yes, we are more vulnerable in an underdeveloped country to experience a cultural identity crisis. And the last one, what steps can be taken to resolve the cultural identity crisis in the youth? So, can you give me some answers? Yes.
Software update या reset इनका.
अच्छा.
बिल्कुल सही इसके अलावा
Look, when I at the age of maybe 45 or 50 or 55, I went to a dars and I went through the Quran with somebody who gave the explanation of the Quran. So I told this person, she's called Abda Gurmani. So when it finished, I came to her and I said, Abda, you know, everything that I've learned now from the Quran, in its meaning and explanation, I have heard it growing up in my home. See, the first step is the home. That's where whatever your parents say, you have to stick to that. I mean, so many pictures have been made about a person coming back from abroad to his village or to his city, Pakistani films and Indian films on that theme. And then they are, very different and they look down upon the culture that they now see in their own home. Am I right? Many themes on those and films have been made. So language is the most important. Today I am speaking in English, but you cannot forget your national language. So when you're around among yourselves or in the home, that is what you should speak. Your own language. And even if you go into a shop and ask for something, why not ask in Urdu? Right? Many times I see mothers with their smaller children, that little, whether it's the Gymkhana club or any place else, speaking to them in English, and the children are replying to them in English. So many years ago, I heard my father say this. He said, if you want to finish off a nation, take their language away from them. And that is what is happening. If you see the ups and downs in Pakistan's politics, ups and downs in government, ups and downs in everything. If there is one uniformity of language, this would not happen. Because you have made a class of English-speaking people, which is 1 or 2% in the country. And then the other half does not speak English. You may think they do, but they don't. for 125 million children are out of school in Pakistan. They never get the chance to be in school. And those who are going to schools with whatever little resources at with them, those schools are such bad quality that they never give you the language if they want to learn English. So, language is the base of everything. And I hope you take that away from me today. Thank you so much.